Hey guys, what's up? It's Alex or Nuznuz here, and today's video is going to talk about how to turn your spare invention components into a ton of extra cash. Now these methods are going to be different for everyone based on what components that you currently have lying around. Now keep in mind this guide is not meant to show a money-making method that you can do over and over again, but more on how to convert your spare invention components into cash. I did this with Dungeoneering tokens, so I'll link that video at the end of this as well. So now we all know there are tons, and I mean tons, of invention components. A lot of the times when training invention, disassembling, using the scavenging perk, we end up with a ton of materials and components that we have absolutely no use for. Well, what if I told you you could turn those components into money? Well, you can. I'm going to be going through some ways to turn your spare invention components into some easy cash. However, keep in mind not everyone will have all these spare components lying around, so don't worry, I'll be talking about how to get some of the other components by disassembling if you want to spend the time to do so. I will also talk about if it's worth it to do so. But before we get started, we are so close to 10,000 subscribers, guys, so if you enjoy RuneScape 3 content, please hit that subscribe button and let's see if we can hit 10k subscribers this video, and make sure to leave a like. But without further ado, let's get into the first method. Alright, so the first method we are going to look at is making Gizmo dissolvers. Now the Gizmo dissolver is an invention device that removes a Gizmo shell from an augmented item, and it costs around 57k on the GE, and people end up buying them quite a bit. As of now, it takes 35 organic parts and 35 clear parts to make one of these. Now when I looked at my spare materials, I actually had over 10,000 organic parts, which was really surprising to me. I did have many clear parts though. To gain organic components, you can gain around 3 to 4k an hour at a cost of 200 a component by disassembling prickly pear seeds. And in terms of clear components, you can get these at a rate of 1k clear components per hour by disassembling unpowered orbs, and it will cost you about 500 GP per component. In total, if you didn't have any materials, it would cost you around 25k per Gizmo dissolver, which is still more than double your money in profit. However, it will take some time to disassemble. If you happen to have any of these components, it's probably a great option to convert your spare components into GP. And I actually ended up making a few myself. So the next way to turn your spare invention materials into cash is by making mechanized Chinchompas. Now for this, you'll need 50 invention, and these bad boys require 65 plated parts, 65 connected parts, and 5 living components, and you will also need 50 red Chinchompas per every 50 mechanized Chinchompas. However, when looking at my materials, connector and plated parts seem to be very common, and most likely you guys will have a good amount of these. If you don't, I don't actually recommend making these, but the kicker is the living components. If you're someone that has a lot of these acorn looking components, then you're in luck. If you don't have any of these living components, I wouldn't really recommend disassembling for them, as they cost around 10k each, which isn't too bad, but they are really rare and you will only get around 10 per hour, which makes this method not worth it if you don't already have them. But if you do have living components laying around, this is honestly an amazing option to turn your spare components into cash. It's really, really good actually. I ended up having 60 living components, so I made a total of 600 mechanized Chinchompas, which I spent around 1.4 mil on the Chinchompas, and in total this came out to 6.9 mil in mechanized chins, or a nice 5.5 mil profit. Alright, so the next item we're going to be looking at is the equipment siphon. Now this requires level 27 invention, and you make it and sell it for around 218k each. You will need 50 simple parts, which all of you should have a ton of because they're super common. You'll also need 5 dexterous and 5 precious components. Now you can get around 50 dexterous components costing about 8k each by disassembling magic shortbows or other cheap shortbows. As for precious components, you can get around 200 to 400 an hour, and you'll be spending about 10 to 20k per component by disassembling either slayer rings or cheap jewelry bracelets. In total, you'll be spending around 75 to 125k per equipment siphon if you get all the components yourself. I don't think it's totally amazing money to do this from scratch if you don't have any components, but if you happen to have any of these components, I had mostly randomly lying around and doing nothing. So I ended up being able to make 33 of these from the components I just had, and this totaled around 7 million GP in basically a minute of work. So if you have these materials lying around, I highly recommend making these if you want some quick cash. Alright, so the next item is one that's fairly known, and it's the Augmentor. Now these sell for 400k each and are bought and sold a ton on the GE. You do need a lot of components, including 45 base, 45 tensile, 45 flexible, 8 enhancing, and 7 powerful. Now odds are you'll probably have a ton of the first 3 components needed, and you'll probably need either enhancing or powerful. Now if you need powerful, you can get these at a rate of about 200 an hour by disassembling certain pouches and spider silk items. By the way, I will leave all the calculators for these components in the description as well. So this will total at around 20k a powerful component. For enhancing, you can disassemble light orbs and you'll pay around 10k a component, and you'll get around 200 an hour. I would only recommend doing this if you have at least some of the components, as these sell for a lot. However, if you're doing this from scratch, it'll be okay money, but nothing crazy. You will also need 225 incandescent energy per augmentor. Now in total, I was able to make 17 augmentors with just the materials I had on hand. I didn't disassemble a single thing, and this totaled out to a nice 7 million GP. Alright, so now we're going to be looking at material crates. Now these are crates consisting of historic, classic, time-worn, and vintage components, which are received from disassembling different archaeology relics and materials. So if you trained archaeology or you have spare archaeology relics in your bank, you can actually disassemble those for components, and you can actually pack the components into crates and sell them on the GE. Now the crates vary from small to large, and in total I was able to make 8 different crates with the components I had left over from archaeology, totaling around 4 million GP. This is also a really good way to get some extra cash if you have those spare relics or materials in your bank. Alright, now finally we're going to go on to the last method, which is one I was shocked about having the components. So it's making augmentation dissolvers, and for this you need delicate and cover parts. You'll need 35 of each, and I was shocked that I ended up having almost 10,000 of each part. Now, I wouldn't necessarily obtain these parts just for this method, but odds are you yourself have a lot of these components lying around like I did. That's kind of the whole premise of the video. Looking at the components you have lying around, I'm sure a lot of you have a ton of components that you didn't even realize could be turned into all this GP. So to make these augmentation dissolvers, you'll also need a vial for each dissolver, and you'll need 27 Invention. Now, while these aren't the most expensive item you can make, these components seem to be fairly common, and I just had so many I wasn't using, I thought, why not? So in total, I ended up making 217 of these, which totaled around 3.2 million GP. So in total, for everything in this video, I was able to make 32 million GP in only about 5 or 10 minutes from all the components that I had available that I wasn't planning to use. If you are someone that has spare components, this video should help you make a ton of extra cash. However, make sure that you figure out if you'll need the components in the future or not, and don't use any components that you think you'll regret later. So thanks for watching, guys. If this helped you out, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more RuneScape 3 content. I'd like to give a shout out to my channel member Brett for suggesting this video to me. It was really interesting and it turned out great, I think. So yeah, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos, and I will see you guys in the next video.